Wat Tyler claimed they were zealots for truth and justice, not thieves and robbers, and he was right. Although to chant a revel, while ransacking the rich, might understandably be regarded with delight. Wat Tyler and his followers were singled out for disdain by a society poisoned by moral corrosion. Current attacks on benefit claimants and the undeserving poor have invited a similar social explosion. The Sunday Times Rich List reveals the accumulated wealth of the 1,000 richest people in the country, which, in the midst of a recession, totals £450 billion, not counting what's in tax havens, thanks to the city. All reinvested to make more money, to buy more privilege, for their children and for their children alone, to perpetuate the system, pickling social mobility in aspic, and to ensure the old divisions are set in stone. Hell is a city much like London, Shelley said, and to Cobbett it was the Great Wen, a cancerous cyst that sucked at England's lifeblood in a selfish merchant oligarch's gambling den. The city can't hide that its nest egg derives from serfdom, from indentured servitude and then from slavery. As the first capitalist power, the city spearheaded colonial expansion, for which no profitable activity was too unsavory. The city's heritage comes from interweaving money and blood, from low-minded connections of gold war and gain. And, as if following the city's mindset, the mainstream media carry news of war economies again and again. The 10 centuries-old assets of the city are never declared, but it's rumoured to own caverns of gold bars, and the land and securities on which loans were once raised yield millions in interest to empower city czars. The city's cash fund spends $10 million a year on lobbying and in making sure that the state is subservient. It ensures the well-heeled can come and go as they please, and that any financial regulations are compliant. Thus, corporation taxes are reduced, and there are tax breaks worth $500 million to city businesses, fixed up at great occasions in the Mansion House for power brokers, lavish events called banquet lobbying by city lobbyists. There's even an unelected city official who sits in Parliament with the unsettling title of the Remembrancer. He and his 7 lawyers vet legislation to ensure it's city-friendly, and, quite undemocratically, this city gopher has a seat in the chamber. But the Remembrancer forgets that the weight which he throws about on the city's behalf derives from the darker deeds of the British Empire, as well as from its worship of the golden calf. For the charter companies formed in the city financed the North American slave trade. The city seized Africa, America, and India like a robber looking for gold and for people to degrade. Why should we not form a secret society with but one object? Asked Cecil Rhodes, the Empire's tool, the furtherance of the British Empire and the bringing of the whole world under British rule. Africa is still lying ready for us. It is our duty to take it, Rhodes added, and beginning with the Royal African Company, every city company obliged. Ambrose Crowley, a city iron merchant, produced manacles and irons for the tethering of slaves on ships. Finance came from John Angerstein, who founded Lloyd's of London on the back of his Grenadian slave estates.
Now come here. Lloyd's is founded on 2 great pillars, news and honest dealing. If either fails, we fail, and with us the whole of the British merchant marine. You know, Lloyd's isn't merely a business of profit and loss. It's the lifeblood of British commerce. Now think of it a minute. Just think of English ships sailing to the farthest ports of the world. Hong Kong, Cape Town, Bombay. Ships and cargo protected by our honesty. A mighty commerce built on faith.
Ever sensitive about its reputation, the city's corporation takes £10 million a year from taxpayers to mishandle. The sum's called the city offset, and it's spent on damage limitation, on trying to cover up all the city's financial scandals, such as the Lehman Brothers collapse or Bernie Madoff's pyramid scheme, a notorious $50 billion racket, or AIG's failed derivatives operation, or the Barclays LIBOR disaster. Clever PR sees the city's not held up by such adverse traffic. So the snorts of cocaine and spoons of caviar in mergers and acquisitions can go on oiling the cogs of pathological money machines, as the world's precious resources continue to be swallowed up by sweaty fingers and the city computer screens. In making sure governments only borrow from the city sentences generations to debt slavery, no differently from the Middle Ages, when serfs were cheated of their birthright by baronial knavery. Thanks to speculative house buying, driven by city greed, London becomes affordable only to the mega-rich, with the poor as an invisible service industry, or simply homeless, there to be stepped over, or left to starve in a ditch. The saying that beneath every fortune lies a great crime has to give each millionaire an antisocial stigma. Why is being one any different from being a child molester or drunk driver? They fall into the same class as Gordon Gekko or Goldfinger. And the squeezed majority pay for the super rich, as they watch the criminal wealth gap grow. And when the lion's share goes to those who don't need it, the rest are inclined to shout, "Fuck it, no." For there's now the widest division in human history between the leisurely rich and the troubled poor. But when the city is secretly stashing away trillions, there's a burning temptation to hack down the door. The City of London Corporation invests in arms, in every arms company it can find, from Lockheed Martin to Boeing to Northrop Grumman to Halliburton. Their investments increase as they decimate mankind. From BAE Systems to Raytheon to General Dynamics, the city makes a speciality of this sickly field. It cares nothing about bloodletting or body counts. The city's only concern is financial yield. And to protest it, a UK Prime Minister, Tony Blair, urged the Serious Fraud Office not to reveal £1 billion worth of kickbacks paid by BAE Systems to Saudi royals in the £48 billion Al Yamamah arms deal. While the rest of the world was uplifted by the Arab Spring, another Prime Minister and some city arms traders left for an opportunistic junket to a Middle East in turmoil, their aim being to sell killing machines to oil-rich dictators. To the arms industry, mass murder is its unspoken ingredient. It's that business's high-end profit stream. What a contrast with William Morris's vision of utopia in his book about John Ball's dream. In it, John Ball returns to address people in the present. He recalls the merry days on earth, where John Ball says, "Fellowship is heaven, and hell is where every man is for himself." In the uprising, Middlesex was aflame as well as Essex and Kent. Chiswick and Hendon, Croydon, Clapham and Mitcham, Kingston and Harrow all sent their contingents to swell the rebel army and cause England's rulers alarm. Then it spread further north and became a national revolt, as the rebels put pressure on landlord after landlord to secure individual charters that released them from slavery. If they refused, landlords knew they'd be put to the sword. The court chronicler Froissart, in a time-serving observation, wrote, "Observe how fortunately matters turned out, for had the rebels succeeded in their intentions, they would have destroyed the whole nobility of England." But in fact it made striking inroads. No poll tax for 7 centuries, and the insurgency had given the lie to feudalism. Likewise, the present city's exposure as a terrorist bankster state highlights the need to skewer its consumer capitalism. And so a new king mob, and a new writer of wrongs called Anonymous surfaces in Tyler's spirit with cybernetic stealth, able to hack into corporate bank balances, however secure, and able to redistribute the acquisition of wealth. During the Peasants' Revolt, Wat Tyler's crowd chanted, "Sceptre and crown, they shall tumble down," and as each action has an equal and opposite reaction, Karma sees that heartless greed isn't set in stone.